Commander, this is the island of Surigao del Norte in the Philippines. The Order of Nations built a stronghold here that is completely independent from the outside world. In their infinite wisdom, it appears the Order has abandoned it, along with a great deal of valuable equipment. On the island, you'll find a shipping yard and an old airstrip. If attackers were to control these 2 points, they could attempt to capture the island's command center. We're also aware of a silo that still houses at least one functioning intercontinental missile. Our dominance in the area will be all but guaranteed were we to possess such a weapon. No one would dare to attack us out of fear of retribution. You can rest assured that this fact has not been lost on our enemies. They will fight tooth and nail for control of this island. Make sure that does not happen.
Hi there, in this video we're going to be talking you through Blue Water, which is one of the 3 maps being featured in this weekend's End of Nations beta event. End of Nations, if you don't already know, is a multiplayer strategy game where multiple players on each side control individual armies in a variety of modes, this being attack versus defense. Here are the attackers spawning on the beach, and the attackers only get this one spawn location at the start, whereas the defenders get 2. The attackers have to take 1 of 2 points in succession. So here we are, massing our troops together to push west, hopefully being able to take the defenders by surprise before they're able to kind of rally a defense against us. Now, the ping function works like any other RTS, allows you to indicate to your allies where you're going to attack. But as we start to roll forward here, you'll see that I also use a special ability that my units have to send a drone forward to basically give us a forewarning if the defenders are coming. Now, using these abilities properly is really, really important in End of Nations. They kind of work like special abilities would in a MOBA, actually, and they're bound to the same keys because they kind of fulfill a similar purpose. Timing is really important, and knowing the right situation to use them. Now, getting a little bit of a warning here on these tanks doesn't really help us from the fact that we are kind of outmatched in this situation. And switching over to the defenders, you can see that they'll eventually push us right back. Now, the defenders here are using the orbital laser special ability to cut off our avenue of retreat, forcing our aircraft back, and basically essentially cutting us off from this entire angle of attack on the first major objective. And what the defenders are doing here that's really good is using the different armies, the different capabilities of their units together to counter what we're throwing at them, which is mostly, as the Liberation Front faction, heavy tanks and big heavy aircraft. Now, End of Nations works on a rock, paper, scissors system for unit balance, which means that even small units like this, if they're evenly matched against the kinds of opponent they're facing, can make progress. And you'll see here even entrenched Liberation Front heavy tanks can't do very much against this kind of consistent onslaught. And here come the Shadow Revolution heavy tanks to kind of fill in that gap in the line and ensure that basically we're not going to make any progress on this part of the front. Now, at times like this, it's worth remembering that the maps are open and it's worth going around a different direction to try and make more progress. That's exactly what we're about to do. Sending fast units like these up the coast to try and take a different supply point is probably a much better idea. If I'd been smart, I probably would have split the units and actually kept that defensive line at the bottom so that the Shadow Revolution wouldn't know what we're doing. As it is, they have already set up defences up here, and that causes a problem, slows us down significantly, and prevents us from taking this landing zone. Now here, looking back at the Shadow Revolution perspective, you can see that they're reinforcing this southerly defensive line successfully against our heavy gunships. And what they're doing well here is, even though they have the disadvantage against the gunships, they're backing off and making sure that the ground forces, which are the only ones actually capable of caping points, can't move forward. And here, as the napalm strike comes in, they split the forces really effectively to kind of minimise the damage. And you can see the Liberation Front ground units on the right with the red health bars coming in to try and fill that gap. But as they do, the defensive line reforms really seamlessly. Now, this kind of flexibility is really important for defensive players, for whom the temptation may be to simply sit still and try and soak up this damage. But especially Shadow Revolution, who are a bit faster, a bit more support-based, and a bit more technical, it's a really good idea to maintain this kind of mobility and minimise damage as much as possible. And as you can see, very little the Liberation Front can do. Now, with sustained pressure, we were capable of taking this landing zone up here, which evens the odds a little bit and gives us a few angles of attack. But we've kind of played our entire hand here as the attackers, and this is really re-emphasises the importance of the attackers to be flexible, maybe to try and maintain a presence on both areas of the map at once. Now we've got basically nothing going on in the south, which, as we push forward, will prove to be a problem. Yeah, so here we have it. That same armour that was causing us such a problem in the south has now been able to relocate north, and it's going to pretty effectively prevent us from taking this major capture point.
Firing at the enemy. Titan reporting. Awaiting your orders. Yes, sir.
And you see more Shadow Revolution troops coming from the south, cutting us off, and as we start to make a retreat towards the base, also preventing reinforcements from our original spawn point.
What are my orders?
And napalm strike was more effective than the last one, but it isn't enough to prevent us from capturing this point before the game ends. It's a good example of how really concerted defensive play can really lock down this map, even against an attacking force that is trying to get around the sides and is trying to make progress elsewhere. One thing we could have done as attackers is maybe consider using a different unit balance or changing our companies mid-fight to ensure that the enemy couldn't necessarily predict what we were going to do. But that's for another game. Thank you for watching, and check out our other End of Nations videos for more on the maps that are featuring in this weekend's
Your ruthless
beta.
ambition has secured the island for us. Well done.
Locked and loaded.